You know, I've realised that if I was a character from Alice in Wonderland, I would be the White Rabbit because I'm always late. Like this video is incredibly late. Hi everyone, it's Jenny. Welcome back to my channel. I have been wanging on for ages about how I still haven't done a best books of the year from 2019, and I will get around to it. So here I am getting around to it finally, before, you know, in 2 months' time I'm going to give you my best books of this year. So better late than never. I just want to gush about books. It's my favourite video, one of my favourite videos to make, so here we go. So let's get into the books. This is in book order that I read the books, because I don't really have a ranking. It's just the top 10 books that I read in 2019, and I haven't read these obviously for a long time, so some of these I might not be the best at describing, but I will have a go. But this is The Last Words by Robert McFarlane, and it was illustrated by Jackie Morris, and it's beautiful. It is a poetry book. I don't know how to show this to you without whacking myself in the face, but it is a poetry book that is beautifully illustrated. Look at that. And it has acrostic poems that go alphabetically, and each poem is sort of, I don't know how well you can see this, but the letters spell out what the poem is going to be on the next page, and then can you see? But it spells the title of the poem, what it is as it goes down, hence acrostic poems. But it's all about plants and nature, and I think it's the idea that if these things died out or got lost, how you would describe them to someone again. And I was very happy because at the end they have a wren poem, which made me very happy. Look at all the wrens, look at them twittering away, and then wren, can you see? Oh, so happy. I'm going to read it to you. Wren. When Wren whirs from stone to furze, the world around her slows. For Wren is quick, so quick she blurs the air through which she flows. Yes, rapid Wren is needle, rapid Wren is pin, and Wren's song is sharp song, briar song, thorn song, and Wren's flight is dark flight, flick flight, light flight. Yes, each Wren etches, stitches, switches, glitches. Yes, now you think you see Wren, now you don't. I just think it's beautiful and perfect, and oh, so happy. I cannot wait to read The Lost Bells, which is the kind of sequel, and I'm just really happy that it's smaller. There we go, that's that book. And then a book that's very different, but still kind of to do with nature a bit. This is Lanny by Max Porter. Again, had a lot of hype. Again, has nice end papers. Woohoo. It is about a boy called Lanny who lives in a kind of commuter belt village, and it's never from his point of view, but he's this kind of precious child, I suppose, and it's written from the perspective of either his mum, his dad, Mad Pete, who is the local artist who gives him art lessons, or Dead Papa Toothwort, who is this kind of, I suppose, mythical green man that at the beginning wakes up and is listening to all the villagers. So it's partly about Englishness and the idea of the history of places like that, and how people who have lived for generations in a village like that outside of London are feeling kind of invaded by Londoners who are moving out to get away from London but still commuting into London, and how that sense of community can be eroded sometimes, and that there can be a divide. So it's partly about that, it's partly about Lanny going missing and won't they find him and that kind of thing, and it's just a great representation of Englishness. It switches to a more kind of abstract point of view. So the beginning, kind of first half, it will say who's talking, but then it switches to this kind of plus situation, and it's not said who has kind of got the reins of the narration, but you can tell it's really cleverly written. There's a great scene where Lanny's mum, who's looking for Lanny, goes to a neighbour to inquire about him, and you have it from her perspective and the neighbour's perspective, and how Lanny's mum thinks the neighbour's really rude, but then the neighbour thinks she isn't rude at all, it's Lanny's mum that's rude, and just that was really funny, and it's just so clever. And yes, it gets a bit like weird at the end, but I just loved it so much, and I can't wait for his next book, which I know is really short, so we'll see what that's like. It sounds, again, even more abstract. But I loved this. It's so lyrical and brilliantly written, and the Dead Papa Toothwort sections are really interesting. Like when he's listening to people, you have all this like interwoven text, and it's quite poetic in some ways, but you just get these snippets of daily life and what people are talking about or thinking. But Dead Papa Toothwort is particularly interested in Lanny, and I just really like the idea of there being a spirit of a place and that being like physically manifested in the story, that like this sense of country and Englishness is just so clever, and I loved it. Then, moving on to, I've banged on about this book a lot, I feel, Hot Milk by Deborah Levy, who was my discovery last year, and I haven't read any books this year, I think I read 4 last year by her, but no, I haven't read any. I need to rectify this, but this is a book that I think, I don't want to say she should have won the Booker, but I kind of think it should have won the Booker, but actually I don't think I've read the winner from that year, so I can't really say, but I loved it. It is about a mother-daughter relationship. I can never remember what the daughter's called. Sophia, nearly. Sophia and her mother Rose, who have a kind of codependent relationship. Her mother is going to Spain with Sophia because she has a mysterious problem with her legs where they just suddenly won't work, and Sophia is in a place in her life where she had aspirations that haven't really manifested themselves, and she's feeling a bit lost. So it's a lot about a mother-daughter relationship. It's also Sophia kind of like exploring her sexuality. There's quite a lot of bisexual vibes in it, which I enjoyed, and it's just really good the way it writes the sense of place. That hot summer Spanish beach, just so perfectly written. She has very sparse writing in a way because her books are always short, but they're just so perfectly crafted and every word feels very deliberate, and I love her characterisation. And there's a kind of, I won't give it away, but there's a really interesting catalyst where Sophia does something to her mother, and you don't know. I won't go on about it, but basically it's a very good book, and also about the idea of illness and like mental and physical illness, and I think mother-daughter relationships again aren't explored that often in books, and I really just enjoyed that dynamic, and how it's a slightly toxic but also there is deep down a loving relationship there. So just so good. All these books, I'm so happy all over again talking about them. And another book that I banged on a lot about, this is You Sad Feminist by Megan Beach, because this is still one of the best poetry collections I've ever read. It's about feminism and mental health. It's about how you marry the two, how feminism is something that is meant to be empowering and make you feel strong, but it's actually very hard to express yourself because mental health and mental illness and depression makes it difficult to express yourself, and also it looks at how mental illness affects relationships, and I just loved it. And also the literary legacy around mental illness with people like Sylvia Plath. I just think this is an inspired collection. I think it's accessible and clever and brilliant, and she needs to be read more because she doesn't have enough ratings on Goodreads, and it makes me sad. So there's that. I've given it to a lot of friends as birthday presents, and now I can't remember if I've given it to some friends or not, but I think it's a great gift if you have a feminist friend that's into books. So there we go. Then we have My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is a book that I think is really good to read now. It's about a woman who graduates from university in America in early 2000s, so it's quite nostalgic of the 90s baby, because she talks a lot about watching videotapes and stuff like that, and I thought, those are the days, man. Being entertained by rewinding something because everyone was going backwards, and it was very funny. Simpler days. But it is about her not dealing well with the grief of losing her parents, and the idea of privilege and how that can be distorted, because on the surface she has a great life. She is skinny, she's pretty, she's blonde, she's white, she's rich. So she decides to take a year off essentially and finds a terrible doctor, I think called Dr. Tutti or something, who is hilarious in a very black comedic way, and she is prescribed a series of narcotics and just sleeps most of the day. And it's partly about how mental illness is so isolating and what happens when you isolate yourself in such an extreme way, but it's also about her friend who has a real penchant for Whoopi Goldberg movies and different crazy diet. So I think it's also about problems with perceptions of women and the restrictions of that, and it leads up to 9/11. So it's very interesting reading it with the knowledge of what's coming, and then the end is that happening. And it's just, I think I haven't explained this very well, but it's really good. It also looks at modern art and the sort of retentions of some of the industry and that kind of thing, because there's an artist who decides to use this as an art piece essentially, and it's a lot about consent in that way as well. It's just about lots of things, and it's just very black and white, like I've said, and beautifully written. And the idea of isolating yourself and being alone and just not wanting to face the world is really interesting. So yes, there we go, there's that. And then a book that I don't have at the moment because my dad has borrowed it is Hotel Silence. I cannot remember the author's name, but I know she's Icelandic and I know I would murder the pronunciation, so I'll put a picture of it somewhere. And I highly recommend you read this book. It is, again, very underread because it's a translation book, and it's published by Pushkin Press. It is about Jonas, who is essentially having a midlife crisis because his wife has left him, he's in his 40s, his daughter isn't the person he thought she was, so their relationship is slightly strained, his mother is descending into dementia, so he decides to buy a one-way ticket to a conflicting war zone and commit suicide. And that is not a spoiler, that is on the blurb, so don't worry. But it's really about how you find purpose, about the small journeys you take to realise you want to live, and the relationships he builds there with the people at the hotel, and how he becomes useful fixing things. And what I like is that it doesn't specify where this conflict zone is, and obviously it means that makes it timeless, because for me I immediately just thought of Syria. But you can read this in the future, and I'm sure sadly there'll be other wars, and you will just place him in that area. And I just think it's a beautiful story of like human connection and love, and just finding hope. Basically, it's a really hopeful book, and again a great one to read now, I think, because it's heartwarming and just really well written and characterised. I loved it so much. And then on to the physical books again. This is sadly not such a happy book. This is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which was her first novel, which is ridiculous because it is so good. Oh my lord. It's just almost annoying that this is her debut novel. But it's not, because I'm, in awe of her. But this is a book that's set in post-depression, kind of mid-1940s Ohio, and it looks at, I think it's Bacola? Yes. Who's living with a poor black family, and it has different perspectives, but it looks at her inferiority complex because she's constantly told she's ugly, so then she attributes blue eyes with whiteness and therefore beauty, so she prays every night to have blue eyes, and that in itself is heartbreaking. But there's a lot that she goes through, huge trigger warnings for incest and child molestation, that kind of thing. There's not a lot of happiness in this book, but it's just so movingly written because it's just so unapologetically about racism and the effects of it, and also child abuse and trauma and how that damages Bacola. And it's hard to sell it to you in that way, but it's just such a moving book, and it made me want to read all of her works. I've since read Beloved, which was also a bit, pretty sad but incredible, and I think this is a great place to start with her. There is something special in reading an author's first work first, and I cannot recommend this enough. It was so impactful. It's really, really stayed with me. If you want to read more black authors and you haven't read this one yet, please read it. And then moving on to something very different, thank goodness. This is The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil, and this again, an incredible debut. Wait, M papers. I know I do this every time, you've probably seen this before, but I don't care. I think it's very pretty. Also, this is like an exclusive M paper because I think I got this like signed edition from Waterstones, and the other M papers are butterflies instead, so I feel very smug about these M papers. Anyway, this is about pre-Raphaelite Victorians. Oh, what a dream! And I kept, oh, is that Iris? Yes, Iris. I knew that. I knew that really. Is a woman who breaks away from her sister and is discovered, I suppose, by a pre-Raphaelite artist and then asked to model. And I really enjoyed how the other pre-Raphaelites come into it and that kind of thing. And there's always mentions of Rossetti and his wombat, Guinevere, who I cannot believe I didn't know he had. I knew he had a menagerie of animals and crazy pets and stuff like that in his house. I didn't know he had a wombat though, and now I really love wombats. I find them so endearing. I never cared about them before, but now I love wombats because of this book. Anyway, and then while she is discovered at the Great Exhibition, which is going on at this time because it's 1851, I want to say 1850. Sorry, I knew that as well. 1850 when the Great Exhibition is happening, which was obviously a big deal. They had this glass palace and they displayed all these things from all over the empire. I'll be like, look, our great collection of things that we cultivated and colonised. But she's also kind of discovered or seen by Silas, who is I suppose taxidermist, but he makes oddities and has this strange shop, and he becomes obsessed with her. So it's partly about her wanting to learn art and become her own artist, and I suppose the difficulties and restrictions for women in their artistic freedom and expression, and compared to men, but especially in the sense that you have the pre-Raphaelite artist, but then you also have Silas, who's making things. You know, he's still being creative in a way that it's harder for Iris to be creative in a more just free way, but then it's also about his obsession with her and the consequences of that, and her trying to find her own independence, I suppose. And I just loved it. I thought it was exquisitely written. I cannot wait for her next book because it's also Victorian fiction. It's a circus setting, and I can't wait. So this, if you like historical fiction, if you like Victorian literature, this is for you, because it's so well researched and I just loved it so flippin' much. Okay, no, sorry. And then moving on to a Victorian novel, surprisingly, the only one on this list, but this is now one of my favourite books of all time. This is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell, which I had a feeling was going to be my favourite, and it is. I haven't read Ruth yet, but I read all her other novels, and I really doubt, judging that Ruth is about a fallen woman, that Ruth's going to be my favourite and beat this one out. So, this is about Molly Gibson, who, I think when she's 17, her father remarries, and it's about her navigating the change in relationship and dynamics when she's always taken care of her father. They've had a very close relationship, so now suddenly she has a stepmother and a stepsister. So Hyacinth is her stepmother and Cynthia is her stepsister, and Cynthia is a little flirtatious and a little naughty, and things happen. And it's also about her relationship with the Hamley family, and Hamleys? Oh no, not like Hamleys, not like the toy shop. Anyway, it's about her love for one of the sons, Roger, and I'm so sad I shouldn't finish it. It is so nearly there though that you can see what's going to happen, and the editor did sort of say that X, Y, Z was going to happen, but it is a little sad. It is still, you know, about 80 chapters long and 800 pages, but you know, it's just much slower, I suppose, than North and South. It's not as political. It's very different to her other novels that I've read, at least, which have some kind of cause at the heart of it, whether it's press ganging in the Navy or the underfunding of the poor and that kind of thing, and whether or not the masters were fair to mill workers. There's nothing like that in here, but the characterisation is so beautiful. Squire Hamley is such an incredibly deep character, such an endearing character. I really like how she writes men. I think Molly Gibson's father, Squire Hamley, like all the men are just written with so much breadth, and it's incredible. It's just a beautiful story, and I feel like I'm not describing it and doing it justice, but it's so wonderful, and it's just nice to read over a month or so, just to take your time with it. I loved this book so much, and the mini-series is perfect as well, so, and it kind of finishes the story. And then anyway, last but not least, we have a book that I read right at the end of last year, and that is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Maxey, which I think was Waterstone's Book of the Year, I believe. And this has had a lot of hype and press, and it is a story of these four companions, partly them meeting along a way of a journey, but it's really just throughout the journey like lovely musings and beautiful illustrations. I mean, the mole is my favourite. The mole is my spirit animal. because he likes cake. Can you see this mole getting fat on cake? That's me. I am the mole. I got you a delicious cake, said the mole. Did you? Yes. Where is it? I ate it, said the mole. Oh. But I got you another one. Did you? Where is that one? The same thing seems to have happened. I just think it's beautiful, but it has a lot of great mantras. It's perfect for all ages. All my family read this over Christmas, so from young to old, you can all enjoy this. It's just so stunning, and look, and I just love it. It made me cry so much. There's a lot of, encouraging messages like you are kind and I want to grow up and be kind, and I got you a delicious cake, said the mole. Did you? Yes. Where is it? I ate it, said the mole. Oh. But I got you another one. Did you? Where is that one? The same thing seems to have happened. I just think it's beautiful, but it has a lot of great mantras. It's perfect for all ages. All my family read this over Christmas, so from young to old, you can all enjoy this. It's just so stunning, and look, and I just love it. It made me cry so much. There's a lot of, encouraging messages like you are kind and I want to grow up and be kind, and to be patient with yourself. It's like a hug in a book. It is like the best kind of mental health book you could ever have, because it's beautiful to look at, but it's also just so encouraging to be kind to yourself, and I loved it. I know I will read this many, many times. It's again a very hopeful book. So I remember when the election happened, I really wanted to buy this then, and I sort of held off till Christmas, but I just cannot recommend this highly enough. In fact, I think out of all of these books, this is the one I would recommend the most as a gift, and this is the one I would say everyone would love, because even The Lost Words, not everyone's super into poetry, though I do think it's very accessible, but this one, if you're going to buy a book for Christmas, this is like the most perfect Christmas book. Oh, joys. Anyway, I have rambled and gushed enough about this book, so I'm so happy I finally did this, because I think all these books have to be read and talked about more, even though I'm 10 months late to the game. Oh well. But tell me if you've read any of these books, or if you would like to read any of these books. Let's gush about them in the comments some more. Oh, woohoo. So I will see you soon for Bookish Shenanigans. Bye!